We're live.
I know. I know you guys need to. One, two, three, four.
Okay. Welcome to the June 2nd meeting of the Galt City Council. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Present.
Councilmember Hewer. Here. Councilmember Campion.
Here.
Councilmember Powers. Here. Mayor Cruz.
Here. Could all rise for a moment of silent prayer, please. Ms. Settles, would you lead us with flags of the please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you do the video statement, please?
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. The meeting is also webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Tonight's meeting will air this Friday and Saturday at 9 a.m. This meeting is also closed captioned. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
Thank you. Agenda approvals, additions, or deletions?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could pull items number 7, E7 and 8. And I would have a suggestion that we move the Galt Youth Commission following the consent calendar, rather than, because the last item on the agenda might be a little bit late for them.
Sounds good to me. All right, moving on. Presentations, new employee introductions. Public Works.
Mr. Mayor and council members, we'd like to introduce the newest member of our Public Works team, Jonathan May. If you want to stand up and come forward to the podium. Jonathan has actually been with the city for a year as a temporary employee, and this past December was promoted to part-time as a maintenance worker at our wastewater treatment plant. And he came to us he's actually in active reserves with the military, and came to us with a nice resume, and he's proven himself very valuable. And with that, Jonathan, anything you'd like to say?
It's been a pleasure so far, and I look forward to the possibility of meeting you all. So thank you for allowing me to work in the city.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. All right. Community Emergency Response Team, Consumnes Fire District.
Council. Thank you. Mayor, City Council members, I'm Brian Schell from Consumnes Fire. I'm also joined by Engineer Robert Brower, Sergeant Walton from Galt PD. We're here to give you an update on the CERT program. We've got a PowerPoint, which, do you have that on your computers also? A PowerPoint presentation that's on the screen. Go off of the wall. So this is a breakdown of who's involved in the program. These are the coordinators and instructors who teach the program each year. We have several of those individuals in the audience, also in the yellow shirts, who came to show their support for the program. CERT in 2015 had several events in both the city of Galt and the city of Elk Grove. The end of 2014 and 2015 for that last fiscal year. These are some of the events listed on the wall that the CERT volunteers provided first aid at. These are the events listed in Galt. These are the events for Elk Grove, and these are yearly events. We've added several over the last several years. The program, the volunteers in the program continue to support whatever new events and requests that come in from the community. We had a total of 18 events. Estimated volunteer hours are going to be around 373 hours of volunteer hours donated by the CERT participants. We provided first aid to approximately 100 event attendees in both the city of Elk Grove and the city of Galt. And what that entails, first aid-wise, is helping individuals who get hurt, could be fall, heart attacks, shortness of breath, various medical emergencies that take place at these events. They also staffed a warming center and a cooling center, both in the city of Elk Grove and the city of Galt, during times when that was required. We conduct training each year. We have several classes. There are 3 classes, level 3, level 2, and level 1. Level 3 is the introduction. We do that twice a year. Level 2 is an intermediate class, which is mass care and shelter. What that means is if there were a disaster here in the town, we have volunteers that could come in and staff a shelter. The level 1 class is first responder training. We do that once a year in conjunction with Folsom Fire. The training schedule is very similar to last year, and it will be very similar to what it is this year. We're going to run 3 basic classes, the ones that I just described to you. We also do advanced training. We've initiated Saturday training. We've also done additional training with ham radio operations. We incorporate those on Saturday, first Saturday of the month. On occasion, they happen to change. There's a website, elkgrovegaltcert.org. So if you're ever curious what the trainers are going to be that month or what we've done in the past, the website has a training calendar which lists out all the training going. We do regional training, like I mentioned, with Folsom. We also work with Sacramento City CERT, Sacramento CERT, West Sacramento CERT, at different training locations. Every year we do a regional training in Monterey. They host a regional drill that we get our members together and drive down there, do some additional stuff. We have additional CERT projects that we're undertaking this year. One of them is ham radio operations to improve our communications during disaster times. If our radio system happens to go down, we can utilize ham radio operators to communicate, improve our communications between fire and police units. We're also working on setting up a rehab unit. If we have an incident that will have an extended duration, we're putting together a program where the volunteers can come out and staff a rehab unit to provide support for the first responders on the scene. These are photos of the trailers that we have together. One of these is in Galt at the Galt Police Station. Another is in Elk Grove at Station 71. They contain materials that were purchased through the grant funding several years ago. This is a picture of what we call the mobile response unit. The volunteers pick up this unit. We also transport this unit to the events. It has medical supplies on it that we use to support whatever medical emergencies or first aid needs to be provided. The CERT budget, we utilized the funding from the 3 agencies last year. I just want to say thank you for that. That allowed our program to continue. We continue to put in for more grant funding. Every opportunity that we get, we put in for additional grant funding to continue the program. And then Robert and myself are the co-coordinators, and Sergeant Walton provides additional training and coordination through Galt PD. So if you have any questions, our number is on the program. And that was the end of the presentation. Any questions?
Very good.
Thank you.
You guys do an awesome job. Really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
I think that whenever we go out to any of those events and we see you guys, we feel a little more safer and are really glad you're there.
Oh, well, thank you. It's only possible with your support that we are out there. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do apologize for the warmness of the building. The air conditioner is in the process of being repaired from what I'm being told, so the fans are probably a good idea. Okay, coming up on the next one is the tentative map presentation by my Community Development Department.
Good evening. My name is Chris Arias, Principal Planner with the City's Community Development Department. This should be coming up shortly. We do have a PowerPoint presentation for you. And we're going to be giving you a presentation about the mapping process, or more specifically, tentative subdivision maps. It's kind of a timely presentation for us because we have a few map applications to review and present. As you know, in the past few years, we haven't had many come across our desk, so we're kind of excited that it's back in front of us. The goal of the presentation is to describe to you the different types of maps, what is required for a map, and what we look for in the map applications. I'll be showing a number of slides, each with maps from the city. They should look familiar to you. This one, obviously, is the Eastview project, and it's the biggest project coming before the city. And while there are many components to it, a well-planned and thought-out map can really make it a great project. There are different types of maps or map applications. I have them shown on the screen. The first is a lot line adjustment or a lot merger. These are approved at staff level. This is the simplest mapping process as it doesn't create new lots. This is a process of changing boundaries between two parcels or merging two or more parcels into one. If you look at the map on the right, that is of Galt Place. They had to merge 5 parcels into one in order to construct the building. The next type is a parcel map. This is a division of land creating 4 or fewer parcels. The parcel at Carillion and Twin Cities used to be a single lot, even though Carillion Boulevard dissected it. A parcel map application was used to create the 2 lots. The other lot was then further parceled out. Subdivision map is 5 or more parcels. And this is the first step in dividing a parcel through the subdivision process. And the first step is really a tentative subdivision map. And the tentative map depicts the lots as they will exist after a map is recorded. In this scenario, the map will be given a list of conditions that it must complete before it can become recorded and final. And the vesting tentative map is a tentative map for a subdivision that, when approved or conditionally approved, locks in the right to proceed with development in accordance with the applicable ordinances and fees in effect at the time. The Planning Commission approves all tentative maps. However, we are changing the code, and that's part of the code update, where if the City Council has entitlements to approve, they will also then approve the tentative map. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And the last stage of the mapping process is the final map, which City Council approves. And this is required for all subdivisions creating 5 or more parcels. A tentative map is eligible to become final and ready to be recorded when all conditions of the map are satisfied. And only after the final map is recorded can the newly created lots be sold. This slide shows the process for when an application comes to the city. We route it to other departments and outside agencies for review. The agency or the departments are like Public Works, Building, Parks and Rec. The agencies include, but not limited to, CSD Fire, the Air District, the school districts. We typically allow them 2 to 3 weeks to provide comments for us, and at this time, staff is providing our review of the project. We then assemble all the comments and send them back to the applicant. They revise the map accordingly, and once they hit all the requirements, we then start the CEQA process. And once it's complete, we then schedule, or once the CEQA process and public review is complete, we then schedule the map for Planning Commission review. And if the Planning Commission approves the map and related conditions, the applicant works on completing those conditions. And again, once they are complete, they can file for a final map, which is then scheduled for City Council approval. The Subdivision Map Act regulates and controls the process of subdivisions. Chapter 17 of the Galt Municipal Code mirrors the Map Act. We are changing that to Chapter 18.64 in the proposed code update. The MAP Act provides a framework for how maps are prepared and how they are processed. It also provides local agencies the ability to regulate and control how the design of subdivisions are created. And this slide shows some of the existing conditions that we require to be shown when we do get a map. We require a tree survey that shows the location and the type of all trees, and oak trees are protected in the city. This screen shows some of the requirements that we have for the proposed map, and they're pretty standard in what you would think you would see, which, where we need to see where the street locations are, the utility locations, the lot sizes, The city of Galt does have a requirement that the larger subdivisions name 2 streets from the Galt Historic Society list. This is a list of names that have historic significance for Galt. The map on the screen is of River Oaks. Ambrosia Way and Whitaker Way are from the historic list. And if you're familiar with River Oaks, the other street names are baseball players. Whitaker Way, coincidentally, is a baseball player and also on the historic list, but Ambrosia is not. This slide describes some of the items that the planning department looks for in a map application, and they're fairly self-explanatory. They must conform. All lots must conform to the zoning standards. And this example on the screen is Morale Estates, which is located in an R1C zone. So the minimum lot size is 6,500 square feet, and it has to have a minimum 65 feet street front minimum. We also look for how the projects connect to existing and future developments. And if you look at this example, it connects well to the existing Emerald Park subdivision to the north, and it connects well to what at the time was a future development of the Meadow subdivision to the south. So this has great internal circulation as well as good circulation to connect to the other parts of the city. The city, and from Moore Way, now connects from this subdivision to the south all the way to Twin Cities. And all new residential subdivisions must provide parkland or pay an in lieu fee. The city's policy is 5 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. As I mentioned earlier, we route the map application to other departments. We work closely with the Public Works Department. So closely, they adopted me as an honorary member of the Public Works Department. It's needless to say, the maps are very important to them. They have a lot of things that are of interest to them, like the streets, the utilities. So we work closely with them to make sure that the streets and the utilities all conform to city standards. Public Works is also responsible for the maintenance districts, or CFDs, so they make sure that all properties are in the proper districts. So after we've completed our review and the CEQA public review is complete, the project is then scheduled for Planning Commission for consideration. This slide on the screen shows the required findings in order to approve a project. The first is simple. It's got to be consistent with the general plan and specific plan. The second requires consistent with regional housing allocations. And then the final finding there requires a layout that takes advantage of passive and natural heating and cooling opportunities. And we also must make findings if we're going to deny a project. And this screen shows some of the findings that must be made, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Not consistent with the MAP Act, not consistent with the general plan. This slide shows some of the general plan policies that we look for when processing a map. And these are just a few. There are a lot of policies that we do look for in map applications. The first one, we do like that new neighborhood designs incorporate a unique sense of place that would set them apart from other existing neighborhoods. And the last bullet there talks about grid-like streets. We do encourage that for new growth rather than the curvy linear design or the loops and lollipops that was popular in the past few decades. The grid-like pattern promotes a healthier design by providing more routes of travel for pedestrians and bikers and so on. And as I mentioned earlier, there are other entitlements with map applications that City Council will review. You can see general plan amendments, specific plan amendments, rezones, annexations, and these are entitlements that the City Council approves. So with the proposed code update, we are making it so that the City Council will then approve the entire project, including the tentative map. In the past, the Planning Commission would approve the map, and then the other entitlements would come to the City Council for approval. So that will change, and the Planning Commission will just make a recommendation to the Council. And that concludes our presentation. The map on the screen is a little bit of planner humor. It's the difference between a grid pattern and the loops that you might see in the city. And I think there's a saying in Boston that says you can't get there from here, and that's because the roads look like that. So we promote the grid pattern. Staff will be available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chris. Questions?
I have one.
Okay.
Chris, does the police department have an opportunity to look at the map as well? And I remember the Sterling Oaks subdivision off of A Street, where we have the cul-de-sacs and the walkthroughs. A few years ago, that became an issue because we were having crime and criminals would escape those walkthroughs, and I thought it would have been nice if the police department had given their opinion before we approved it. Do they do that today?
They do. Chief Bowen, when he was here, was real good about providing comments on maps and other projects, and I'm sure his replacement will be the same. We just haven't had any chance to route any projects since then, but they haven't. I know the chief was real big on SEPTED, which was safety through design. So he did look at subdivisions and commercial projects with that in mind. So I know that was high on his list, and he did review them for those types of things.
Great, thank you.
Any others? All right, thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, public comment, please.
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the council on non-agenda items. Speakers may address council on any agenda item during consideration of the item. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council and limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the clerk.
All right, and Kathleen Amos.
Good evening. Mayor Cruz, council members, and staff. I am Kathleen Amos, and my friends tonight are Sharon Spons and Eldred Scott. Dick Smith could not be here. I come to you tonight to raise a question. Our dear friend and a former member of the City Council died in April. His name was Orville Fletcher. He was an amazing 99 years old. As you all know, Orville was superintendent of the high school district for close to 25 years before he retired to council for 8 years. He remained active in the Galt Lions Club, the Galt Area Historical Society, and the Galt Methodist Church until his family placed him into a nursing home approximately 2 years ago. Nearly 60 years of community service to Galt deserves recognition. A group of us have formed the Orville Fletcher Memorial Fund, a nonprofit corporation. Our goal is to identify and build a memorial that is fitting, given Orville's tremendous contributions to our community as a whole. Tonight we want to spark community discussion about how we can best honor Orville. We believe his tribute should be something visible but placed in a safe location where it can be protected. We hope that each and every person in this community who loved and respected Orville will come together to assist our committee as we seek the most appropriate tribute to him. Next week, we will place a letter to the editor in the Galt Herald and the Lodi News Sentinel to invite members of our little town in this greater Galt area to enter into this discussion until we have completed the dedication ceremony. We look forward to working with you to find a suitable memorial. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you. I think it's a very good idea.
Yes,
Kathleen, we talked about this earlier, and I think it's a great idea. I do.
You know, we hope that if there are some things on the drawing board right now that we can talk about that. That's what we want to do, is get the community thinking about it and moving in that direction.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up and you know, the letter to the
Yeah.
editor and, you know, get it out there, let people know what we're thinking.
On the back of your letters is are the phone numbers and details for all 4 of us on the committee.
Oh, great.
So feel free to email us or call us.
Look forward to working with you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to consent calendar. Items 7 and 8 have been pulled. Do I have a motion to approve 1 through 5?
So moved.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Payne. Do I have a second?
Second.
You want 1 through 6?
1 through 6, I'm sorry.
Okay.
What amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
1 through 6.
And a second by Councilmember Campion. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. moving on to item 7 on consent calendar. Councilmember Campion.
Yes. I agree with changes going from the 3-year average to the single year. I understand the report and why you want to do that, to capture costs earlier. But my question is, how are the departments doing their estimates? I mean, does it still vary, or is there a consistent methodology that's employed?
It does vary, but what we created a universal template. Actually, it was modeled after the one that the Community Development Department has been using for several years. He's looking at me, yes, and he's familiar with it.
Okay.
So actually, we shared that. I think that went out to all departments in October of this year. So we are asking for that template to be utilized so that employees can capture time on a pay period by pay period basis. So recording this information at the end of the year is really, it's almost seamless now, but we are still working with some divisions in utilizing that form.
That's good, because it just seemed like there was a lot of inconsistency on how the estimates were arrived at. Not to say that one was better or wrong, but it seemed a little bit confusing, particularly if someone from the public was trying to get a better understanding of how the cost allocation plan works. So,
No, we totally agree with that. We've actually been trying to be able to support the increases or decreases of fluctuations, and having that as support documentation just to facilitate that.
sure. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay,
Approved.
second.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Campion. It looks like a tie between,
One second. I think there was a public comment.
I believe that's on number 8.
Well, there could be, I don't know.
No, he asked to speak on number 7. Number 7?
Number 7, cost allocation plan.
I don't have it, doesn't have here, but go for it.
Do you want to speak, Mr. Walters?
Yes,
Oh,
thank you very much. I'm asking you tonight to not go forward with this cost allocation plan at this present time. This plan is transferring approximately $1.5 million from the utility funds. So I'm asking you to hold off for maybe 1 or 2 months until the rate study comes back to find out whether we actually need to keep these funds in the utilities or not. This problem has been going on for several years. And just recently, the city council put the police department in as one of the departments. And I don't understand why they did that, because whether the police department is taking, if something goes wrong with the water, and the police department has to put some cones out there. So they're gonna charge time to putting the cones out there, not taking care of the water issues. That's one of the problems I have. The other problem I have is the public works director is telling us that the sewer and water rates are gonna go up. Well, if they're gonna go up, why would you transfer this money out of it? So I'm asking you to wait until the rate study comes back, so you can get an idea of where this money, if you take $500,000 out of the water fund and put it in the general fund, then that's money can be best served in the water fund, not transferred to the general fund. Same thing with the sewer. There's about $700,000 that are transferred out of the sewer fund, put into the general fund for indirect process. $190,000 is out of the storm drain fund, and I think another $50,000 is out of the waste department. So all I'm asking you is to be frugal about this and wait. If you have to wait a couple of months, it's no big deal. It just makes sense, because you're going to be raising the sewer rates and the water rates. That Mr. Winkler has told us. And some of that water rates is going to be 500%. Well, if this $500,000 stays in there, they won't have to raise it that high. That's my whole point.
and I understand exactly what you're saying, Rick. But the point is that this is based on costs for the prior year service. So these are services that have already been provided by the various departments. And it's a reimbursement is what it comes down to at this point.
But it's for future growth, it's for future costs. It says they're using the last year for future, that's what it says.
Well, it's reimbursement from the prior year expense. At least that's my understanding. It's what it used to be.
That is correct. We are actually using last year's actual in the current fiscal year. We are using it for the basis of the budget for next fiscal year, but once this year is completed, then we will apply it to the next fiscal year. So there's just really a one-year lag, prior year into the current year.
Right.
So you are correct.
The other problem I have is the personnel that continues to be put on the system. 2010, there were 24 people. As a matter of fact, I sat in the finances director's office after we went through that in 2010. 2013, it went up by 50%, up to 36 people. This is 2015. I hate to imagine what it is right now, how many people you have on this cost allocation plan. Maybe 40. So there's no restraints. You're not restraining them at all. They're just, if they hire new people, something to do with the water and sewer, they're going to put them on the cost allocation plan, which takes more money out of the water and sewer. That's where we need it. We have seniors that are depending on you guys to do the right thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else to speak on it? Mr. Chivinez?
Dan Jimenez, and I live here in the city. The reason I wanted to discuss number 8 on your consent calendar is when I first saw this, I saw that the proposed operating expense for this year is going to be $1,622,3. So that's a heck of a lot of money, so it really grabbed my attention. So, and first of all, I thought that since you're discussing this big amount of money that you're going to be asked to vote on, why was it on the consent calendar? That seems to me that that would have been an item that should have been on the regular calendar for discussion. Anyway, moving on. I don't know who this question's going to go to or who's going to answer it, but what was last year's operating budget in order to get you to this 161 million change?
Maybe the finance director can address your question.
Actually, I believe that the number that Mr. Jimenez is referring to is the actual limit. So that's not indicative of our operating expenditures. It basically states that the total amount that can be received by the agency for taxes and other revenues can not exceed a certain cap. Any amount in excess of that has to be returned to the constituents. So by law, we are required to present what that limit is, and it's calculated at $161 million, which is what you're referring to. The operating expenditures for the current year or for next fiscal year for the city, for all funds across every fund across city operations is $30 million. So again, this is not indicative of the expenditures anticipated, but merely the limit.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that this 161 mil is your high end, and you may not be using all that. You're just using that as a number that you may or may not reach. Right?
We do not anticipate reaching that limit, but it is a limit that must be calculated pursuant to the law. So we have to present that to council and advise all the constituents, council, the governing body of what that limit is. But as stated in the report, it's anticipated that we will remain below that limit as our budget for all funds is less than 30 million. So we do anticipate being less than the limit.
Okay, but you use the CPI, so what percentage was that of the CPI that you used for this, or to get to this number? sorry.
No, that's okay.
It just grabbed my attention, like I said that.
I think our analyst, Matt Boring, is the one that probably has it at his fingertips, but I believe that CPI was 3.82%. Is that correct?
Yeah.
PI that is in the calculation is 3.8%.
And, you know, I looked up the CPI for the western region, area, I believe that's you use also.
Actually, it's information that we received from the Department of Finance, from the State Department of Finance.
Okay. But I went in there and I looked at the CPI for the western region, which has been used before, and that came in at 2.4. It's 3.8. You know,
Right.
That's quite a bit of difference.
Yeah, we are actually looking at different CPIs, even for the user fee study that will be coming to council, and it was the amount that you just cited. But this is the information that we received from Department of Finance for the state of California. And when council makes or staff makes the recommendation, we actually recommend using the CPI for California as well as the city's population growth. So they actually have to take a vote on which number to utilize. But it is our recommendation to use the state of California's CPI based on the Department of Finance.
Okay, so you're using the California CPI.
That is correct.
And then, you know, for the population growth, what is the percentage that you feel for this coming year again to get you to this number? Because you use all those factors to get to that 161 mil, right?
That is correct. And I believe that amount was 1.33%. And that is received again from the, I believe that was from the state. They tell us, or the county, they tell us what the increase in population is, or of the unincorporated area. Again, staff makes a recommendation to council on which growth rate should be used in calculating these ones.
Again, you know, these are, that's a big dollar amount, so I was hoping that there'd be some discussion up here from the council and not just, you know, vote on it, just boom on the consent calendar. I really feel with an item like this, if nothing else, should be brought on a regular calendar and have some input. I mean, I'm not the only one that has questions, you know, and the questions are, the answers are fine, but, you know, when you see something like this, don't you think it would be a benefit to the public?
Well, that's why it came off. There was a question, and that's why it came off here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, since we've had both of them, did you have anything to add to number 8?
No.
Mr. Campion?
No.
Do you want to make a motion on both?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion for both 7 and 8 by Councilmember Campion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Payne. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Motion carries. 5-0. Okay, moving on. We are going to move I-1 forward. So tonight, we have 4 youth that are going to be appointed to the commission for our Galt Youth Commission, and those appointees are Kristen Miller, in the audience, Alexis Gamez,
No.
Amanda, okay, I'm not going to butcher the name here, Yebra, is that correct? And Juliet Rodriguez. Those are our appointments. Council.
Come on up to the podium.
Do I have a motion to accept these 4 young people?
So moved.
I have a motion. Give me a chance here.
At least let them get lined up.
Yeah. Okay, I have a motion to accept by Councilmember Hewer and a second by Councilmember Powers. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Welcome, but you're not finished.
Well, Ms. Settles comes down. I want to tell you how much I enjoyed reading your application. So amazing. Congratulations.
Repeat after me, raise your right hand. And speak nice and loud. Okay, I, and say your name. I. Speak nice and loud. Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
To the Constitution of the United States.
To the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation,
Without any reservation.
or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And during such time.
And during such time.
As I am a student member.
As I am a student member.
Of the Galt Youth Commission.
Of the Galt Youth Commission.
I will faithfully discharge.
I will faithfully discharge.
The duties of the position.
The duties of the position.
Of commission member.
Of commission member.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
Great, congratulations, and Amanda? Congratulations. All of you.
Once again, congratulations.
Do any of you want to say anything? We just asked.
Okay, moving on to scheduled matters. Continued public hearing on the Development Code update, zoning map amendment, and landscape design guidelines. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. Yes, this is a continued public hearing, and the way I've designed this, we'll have several steps going through here, and you can kind of help me lead the way. But I wanted to basically pick off where we left off back in April. As you recall, last month we continued the item to tonight, but we had no discussion at that time. So the Planning Commission reviewed the documents and unanimously recommended approval of the documents to you with revisions. The Council held a workshop on March 10th, considered the Planning Commission's recommended revisions and made some of their own, and directed staff to incorporate those into the final product. We were also directed to present the project, particularly the sign ordinance and the mobile food vending requirements that were proposed to the Galt Chamber of Commerce. So I met with the board on March 12th and the Chamber of Commerce general membership on the 19th and received positive feedback. They had no recommended revision. So on April 7th, we had our hearing, and I presented the document, which you have in your binders, with the revisions that were made, either recommended by the Planning Commission or by you at the public workshop. On April 7th, we had several other revisions that were brought up, and I also discussed those a few days later with Councilmember Campion. However, since that time, we haven't actually taken action on those particular items, and no additional items have been presented. So what I wanted to do was run through the items that we had discussed on April 7th. And get your buy-in, or to keep it as, basically keep the document as is. Just to remind everybody, the purpose of the new development code is to make it more modern and user-friendly. It's to consolidate several of our existing codes into one new development code. That would be our subdivision ordinance that we discussed earlier, noise standards, trees, etc. To ensure that we are consistent with the general plan, which has been adopted well after the current zoning ordinance was. It's also to ensure consistency with newer federal, state, and local regulations. That includes our new water standards. to eliminate outdated processes and to introduce new or updated development standards. So I'm going to run through the revisions that were brought up on April 7th, and I'll stop at the end of each one and find out whether or not you concur. If you do, I do have revised chapters with these already incorporated, ready to go, so we can adopt or at least introduce the ordinance this evening. If you want to keep them as is, though, then we'll keep working with the book that I gave you on April 7th. So with regard to the definitions chapter, when we repealed the animal keeping ordinance, because we're going to bring that back later, we may have been a little too aggressive, and there are a couple definitions that should be actually added back in, or kept in, I should say. And those would be animal / domestic and household pet. And then the other would be to clean up the bed and breakfast a little bit based on comments received, and that is to allow either an operator or a manager of the facility to live on the premises or adjacent to, before it had just been the operator. So if you're okay with these changes, we'll go ahead and bring in the new chapter, or would you prefer that we just leave the definitions as we had them in the past?
I'm okay with the new definitions.
Do we need a motion to general consensus?
Can I make a comment before we move on?
Sure.
I'm not taking a position on this, but I'm sharing an email that I received from a citizen saying they wish that we would allow chickens, 4 chickens. So I'm just sharing that with the council in case they have.
Well, we all received.
I know. So there you go.
Okay. And again, we're handling the animal keeping separately anyway, so that will come back at some time.
Okay.
As a completely separate ordinance, based on our discussions with the committee. We'll keep that under consideration.
It has been considered in the past, and so I guess still of interest.
Yeah, there had been a lengthy discussion in the past on it.
With regard to multifamily residential open space requirements, it was brought to our attention at the last, back in April, that the standards that were being proposed might be too restrictive for projects that were trying to be more affordable in nature, and therefore the suggestion was that the standards be basically considered at the design phase as opposed to actually being strict standards. So an applicant can come in with whatever they want, and staff would work with them and come up with what would be hopefully the best product for everybody involved, as opposed to just having strict, say, 100 square foot standard or whatnot. So our recommended change would be basically to allow open space, whether it be common or private, to be considered at on a case-by-case basis.
Did we get any comment from any developers on this by any chance?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
But actually, this would make it a little bit easier, so to speak, because of the list.
Okay.
Moving on.
Mixed-use standards, these were really just cleanup. The first was to reduce the amount of the floor area for a building or a project that had to be commercial from 25%, which had been proposed, down to 10%. Allows a little bit more flexibility, and, whatever the mix of uses will be out there. And the other was really just to clarify that while commercial uses would only be allowed on ground floors along major streets, which are obviously more heavily traveled and less appealing to ground floor residential, on your side streets and on interior streets and driveways and whatnot, we just wanted to make very clear that residential units and commercial uses both would be allowed. It just wasn't clear before. We're not changing the intent of the policy. It's just a matter of clarification. With regard to the downtown standard, the land use matrix was brought to our attention that there are quite a few existing single-family homes in our mixed-use downtown area, and so by allowing them by right, along with second residential units, these lots would not be considered non-conforming with the new development code, and it would allow a little bit more flexibility for some of these smaller infill lots where you couldn't fit a mixed-use building. So our recommendation would be to allow single-family and second residential units by right in the mixed-use zone. The other would be to allow appliance repair and service also in mixed use with a micro use permit. Had originally been not allowing them, but again, it's brought up that they potentially could be allowed subject to additional scrutiny, minor use permit process with the board. And then with regard to the industrial standards, as you may recall, we have a big lots ordinance that we are proposing to eliminate, and but we're bringing in the design standards for the most part into commercial. And some of those we were proposing to bring into the industrial as well, not all of them, but some. But in order to maintain our competitiveness in the market, it was recommended that perhaps we just continue on with our current standards, which is reviewing the projects on a case-by-case basis, and not dictating what type of design an industrial building would have. Staff we don't really see any significant concerns with changing our process the way we go through it now for industrial projects. So we'd recommend taking out those particular design standard requirements. So before I go any further, those were the changes that were recommended, and if you agree, we can go ahead and, like I said, move those forward. Prepared to do so. But before I get into the findings, if you wanted to make any additional revisions or wanted to discuss any of the past revisions, I'm prepared to do so. Also, if you wanted to discuss or revisit the discussion of the zoning map amendments that were also being proposed, we can go ahead and take care of that, as well as any comments or questions you have on the design guidelines themselves. If not, Phil, I can move on and finish this up quickly.
Well, I still have some issues that I was working on since last meeting. Just not too many, handful. But I would like to at least go over. And I'm in agreement with what we've done so far. And quite frankly, I just didn't have the time to get in to see Tony to go over this in order for him to have time to put it in the staff report. So, but the questions I had, this dealt with the land use table. On convenient, you have under convenience markets, and this is in 1820-4. In one section, I don't recall offhand, you have convenience market, and you make a distinction between 24-hour and non-24-hour operations. But in this, under the commercial, at least I think that's what was in there. There's no distinction on the convenience market. It simply says that they're conditional in both the commercial and the highway commercial. And I guess my question was that there was a distinction made in one of the other sections, but I don't know which one it was.
Well, we currently have a distinction in the current zoning ordinance. That may have been where you found it, unless it was in, say, the mixed use downtown area.
But if you, I guess my next question would be then, why would you want to make it conditional if they're already permitted in the commercial and the highway commercial? So it would be conditional. They'd have to get a conditional use permit to do the same activity that they could currently do today as a permitted activity.
Well, again, it was a lot of cities do require conditional use permits for convenience markets, and as part of the update, so to speak, to basically bring in conformance with standard planning principles, so to speak. The other idea is often with convenience markets, again, is that they are 24 hours, which can be problematic, and therefore often conditional use permits are required for those.
That I would agree with. That I would agree with. But if it's a non-24-hour operation, then I don't see the necessity for the use permit, and this doesn't make a distinction whether it's 24-hour or not.
Correct. This would be for any convenience market.
Any convenience market. Well, I would disagree with that, but that's just me, I guess. Under restaurants, you have with drive-throughs, they have to have conditional use permits, but restaurants, fast food without drive-throughs don't have to have a use permit. And I don't see the distinction there.
Again, often with drive-throughs, the problem that you have is you've got mainly noise, additional traffic, lighting and whatnot, which you don't have with a walk-in. So for instance, Carl's Jr., often has a drive-through, and if it's next to a residential area, it could be problematic for those existing neighbors. Whereas if you have, say, a Chipotle, which is a sort of fast food, but it's always a sit-down, people just walk in like any other standard restaurant, and you don't generally have the exterior issues that a drive-through would present.
Then I would think that the same thing would apply for coffee houses, because if it's the exterior noise level, then it's the impact on the adjoining property. I don't understand why that would be exempt then.
The reason why we exempted it was simply because if Starbucks comes in, we wanted to try to make the process as easy as possible for them. That is really the only difference, because you're correct in that the drive-through is a drive-through.
Well, if it's a standard, I think it should be a standard and no exception. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could end up with the same amount of activity or more activity with a Starbucks than you could with a Jack in the Box. I mean, so I think it's inconsistent in terms of applying the requirement for a use permit versus not, because it's some people would like to see in town.
And then the other thing to keep in mind, just with any fast food, especially in the city, based on the comments that we've received for the last strategic planning session, for instance, there was a big concern about an oversaturation of the drive-throughs in general in the city, no matter who they are. For instance, there were a lot of complaints about the second McDonald's and whatnot. We can't regulate who comes in necessarily. We can't tell somebody that they can't Taco Bell, you can't come, but in and out you can. But again, oversaturation is often also a problem that, again, can't be addressed through the conditional use permit process. By singling out the coffee house, again, we were able to give them a separate definition and not call them a restaurant, because, again, we don't necessarily have an oversaturation yet of coffee houses in the city. So that was one of the reasons why there's a differentiation between a coffee house and a fast food restaurant.
Well, I would tend to agree with Kurt that a drive-through is a drive-through, and if we're going to have a conditional use permit for drive-throughs, then we should have a conditional use permit, whether it's a coffee house or whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a fast food restaurant. That they both have drive-throughs, and we should look at both of them for that same issue, traffic, how it's. So I would think that, if the standard is that we're going to have a conditional use permit for a drive-through, whether it's a coffee house or not, it should be the same. Either we're going to permit it or not. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I think I know the answer already. How many of our drive-throughs right now are anywhere near residential?
Currently, they're not an issue at this point.
I can only think of one.
And currently, we do not require a conditional use permit. I think the main problem really is the oversaturation issue in this city currently.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we don't require a conditional use permit, so if it's the council's inclination to not require a conditional use for any of them, that would basically be consistent with what we allow.
I think that there's maybe my perception is different. I think there's a general feeling that the residents of the community would like to see a greater diversity of the type of restaurants rather than fast food. The problem is the city regulates land use, doesn't regulate necessarily private decision making when it comes to new businesses. So, the businesses that come here, they've identified a market. Unfortunately, they haven't been the restaurants that I think people want to see in town, and that's the problem. But it's not. I don't think it's so much whether there's a drive-through. That's just the restaurant, and that is their market niche where they have a drive-through, and that's part of their marketing plan. So I think ultimately we will see the types of restaurants we want, but our population has not changed substantially in the last almost 8, 9, 10 years. So until we reach a different population threshold, I think we're going to unfortunately maybe see the same types of restaurants for a short period of time.
So our current policy is to permit it.
Correct.
Yeah. Then I would suggest that we move to the permitting.
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there consensus on the council on that one? Again, I think the reason it was recommended, and Tony, I think, articulated it well, which is a response to a community concern, which is an oversaturation of fast food restaurants, and so we designed the policy really to be responsive to that community concern. Doesn't mean that you wouldn't permit the fast food restaurant from coming in, but the council would at least be able to take a look at it and to see if you wanted the next fast food restaurant coming into town or not. If you're not permitted, then there's no choice. Council has no say, there's no discretion. If you require a conditional use permit, then the council does have a voice, or the planning commission has a voice in that process. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. The council preferred just a permit, and that's certainly fine.
I don't.
But that only deals with the drive-through portion. I mean, they could still, it would otherwise be an allowed use with no review, as long as they didn't have a drive-through. So,
right.
So it's no guarantee that you're not going to get additional fast food restaurants.
Right. I think the biggest concern was with the proliferation of the McDonald's and the Taco Bells and the other ones that do have the drive-through. You could certainly put it on any ones, but I think those were the bigger concerns, and so that's what we chose.
I personally think better safe than sorry, you know, having been on the planning commission, and, you know, if a conditional use permit is needed.
Well, my only concern is if a conditional use permit is needed, then we should have it for all of them, not just for singling out ones with drive-through. So if we want to have a conditional use permit for fast food, that's fine, but we only have this policy only shows a conditional use permit for fast food with drive-throughs. So if you're wanting to meet a community concern, then why aren't we looking at it across the board for all fast food?
Okay, name me a fast food that doesn't have a drive-through. Is there one in town?
Chipotle.
There's not Chipotle in town.
Oh, you said in
There
town.
are,
Oh,
Subway.
Subway. Well, I think if you limit it to drive-throughs, it's very easy to, I think, identify what's a fast food and what's not. If you don't, then you could go into any one of our shopping centers, and there's a number of restaurants that would qualify potentially as fast food. Some of the Chinese restaurants, pizza places. There's a variety of different items. The one across the way over here, and so I think with the fast food that comes with the drive-thru, those are easy to identify, and it's a pretty small box that you're talking about. If you open it up to any fast food, then I think it raises other questions about how many or what types of businesses you're catching, because it's not necessarily chain fast foods, right? It could be your mom and pop fast food that you'd be capturing at a conditional use permit, where typically a mom and pop's not going to open up a fast food with a drive-through. Right. They're going to go into an existing storefront space and lease it.
I don't have an issue with the conditional use permit. Where I kind of drew the line was when I heard, but coffee houses are exempt. No, if you have a drive-through, it's across the board. I understand what you're trying to do, but it's got to be fair to everybody. So if you're going to have a drive-through and it has the potential to affect people and their homes, then put the use permit there. Just because it's Starbucks or Dutch Brothers or whoever you might want to come in here, it doesn't make them exempt. They should be treated the same as everyone else if they have a drive-through.
I have to say that I agree with that. I don't particularly want to see very many more drive-through fast foods, but and I do hope that we can have the opportunity to regulate those or take a look at them. But I also agree that if we're going to, I don't think we should be making a special regulation, heaven forbid, for Starbucks.
When we already have two very good, or, you know, in the town, more than two. You know, been with the community, some of them over 20 years.
I mean, we love Starbucks, but I'm not in favor of making a special rule for them. I don't really love Starbucks.
I don't know.
A lot of people.
So would it be an issue just to drop that part of it and leave the conditional for all drive-through?
Whichever way you want to go. No, it wouldn't. We could either take that line item and take off coffee houses and require CUP for all, or we could just allow them by right and just have a P across the board, opposed to C type of entitlement.
I would say just drop that distinction of exempting.
I would agree.
Coffee.
Mayor, I'd recommend you take a motion on the issue so we can just.
Do I have a motion to close that?
Until we get confused again.
Okay.
I thought that I could make a motion, I hope I can, that we continue to look at all drive-throughs and do not have distinction whether it's a coffee house or not.
So it would require a conditional use permit for all of them?
Correct.
So your motion is conditional use permit for all restaurant fast foods with drive-throughs?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Have a motion by Vice Mayor Payne and a second by Councilmember Hewer. Can you call for the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Okay. You have your answer, sir. 5-0.
Go ahead. Next item was on the next page. It dealt with sidewalk cafes. And there's a footnote that disallows those which serve alcoholic beverages. And didn't we just approve a wine tasting room that is working towards a sidewalk cafe?
It's a different type of use. Actually, the wine tasting room is not a cafe. In fact, their ABC license does not allow them to actually prepare food on site, for instance. The food that is brought on site is actually that brought on site. It's not considered a cafe. The other thing is the ABC also has strict licensing with regard to outdoor areas for serving alcohol. For instance, they have to have a fence around them and whatnot.
Right.
And the new little parklet, you can't even call it a parklet, so to speak. The new little outdoor area will be separate and stopped to allow them to serve alcohol. So it's not functioning truly as a cafe.
But if someone did want to, this would disallow it, correct?
This would allow a sidewalk cafe to be to come in, basically, so they would need to be ancillary to a shop or restaurant or whatnot. So if you've got an existing restaurant, so to speak, and you want to have outdoor seating, that would be allowed.
Well,
But it says does not include serving alcoholic beverages.
That's the thing. It would not be allowed to serve the alcoholic beverage.
Well, I'd like to point out that in the downtown zone, the sidewalk cafe is a permitted use in the zone that the wine tasting room is in. So they're in different zones. So in the downtown zoning district, 18.28.
Right.
If you look at the sidewalk cafe, it is a permitted use, so it would kind of take care of that. So they're
Which, in 1828?
Yeah, so 18.28 on page 18.28-10. So sidewalk cafe is still called out as a specific use, and then it is permitted in the downtown commercial zone, which is where our city is located.
Oh, but did we strike because I have a note here that I have the same question on that. It was footnote number 7. Because I'm not following you, Chris. So what are you saying?
Well, I'm saying, so the exception for Barsetti for wine tasting, for example, it is a permitted use in that downtown commercial district.
Right, but then the footnote says you can't serve liquor. That's footnote number 7. That's on 1828-13.
And I think that was, my one doesn't have that, but I think we're supposed to I think we were talking about changing that for that downtown zoning district.
Okay. Because it did. I did remember that, but I thought we discussed this at the last meeting, didn't we? It would have been 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. Because I had this, that was one of the items I had, or you and I went over this then in the office.
Possibly for the downtown area. Yeah, we do again allow wine tasting as a separate use in the downtown area as well, which is how our study came in to begin with. We changed the downtown specific requirement to allow wine tasting room in that.
Okay, but it still doesn't address the issue of why wouldn't you allow, like Velvet Creamery, if they decided to serve beer. Why
They do.
They do serve them.
They do.
They can't do it according to this code. This code disallows
How do we
that.
know that?
Sorry.
Well, yeah, 'cause they have a sidewalk cafe.
Sidewalk
They have a
Cafe,
sidewalk.
and if you look at footnote 7, it says, you can do it, and does not include serving alcoholic beverages. That's my point. I didn't know they served it, I thought maybe they might have something. They do. So,
They do.
It is fenced off, so that may be a,
I would make a motion
Yeah.
to, on both of these footnotes, to delete the, if they want to serve wine or beer, they should be able to on an outdoor cafe. If they're serving it indoors, they should be able to serve it outdoors. And that's my.
Well, I agree, because wasn't Barclays going to add something outside anyway?
And again, they fall under the wine tasting, but,
Oh.
Yeah.
all people have no problem with it.
Yes.
But isn't that part of it what's permitted with
and
their,
just-
with their alcohol license?
Yeah.
And they do have to go through licensing separately from the city. And again, yes, that is, in fact, that's one of the reasons why it's delayed is because they've been working with the ABC, who takes a lot longer than the city does to put things through. But it is a separate process.
So if they're serving outdoors, they're going to catch it at the ABC.
Correct. And the ABC has very strict different types of licenses too, again, whether or not food can be served, what types of alcohol can be served.
so your motion is to strike those footnotes?
Yes, on both the downtown plan and then under 1820 and 1828. As it relates to the footnotes. The footnotes.
If I may clarify, and that would be just the last portion of that, which says, and does not include serving alcoholic beverages, or would that be?
Yeah, that's correct. That
Okay.
makes sense to me.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Campion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Powers. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Okay, 5-0. Next.
On the same page, under 1820-5, under laboratory testing or classification, including agricultural services, it references a footnote number 3, but I don't understand why it references footnote number 3.
Reference is footnote number 4.
Correct.
Oh, it is 4?
4.
Oh, it is 4. I'm not real clear, well, either one of them didn't make sense to me, I guess, now that I look at it. Because it says laboratory testing and classification, including agricultural services. The footnote says, you shall be clearly rated to and a support service of the office professional use. So that's generally in reference to the retail operation in the office professional, so that the retail section is ancillary and subordinate to the manufacturing portion. So it just didn't make sense. It seemed like.
Isn't that something like, if you had a blood, an office that's for blood testing or blood draws?
But it's laboratory testing or classification, including agricultural services. I'm not really sure what it is, but other than laboratory and laboratory testing, I guess it could be human as well as animal. As well as animals, what it sounds like. But it says that you shall be clearly related to and a support service for.
So like a veterinary office or?
Yeah, but that's just for.
Is that what the intent is?
I don't know, it just didn't make sense.
This was actually one of the existing standards that we did not change, so that's how it reads in the current code.
I don't understand it. I think it's, I don't know that it's necessary, but if you think it needs to stay, let it stay, because it just doesn't make sense.
Again, I believe you're actually on the right track with regard to the fact that if it's in the office zone, which is where this footnote applies, it needs to be related to an office type of use, a commercial or oriented use.
Tony, just a point of clarification, I think footnote 4 is up above under retail stores general. It says permitted under OP, and that it's 4, so that's correct. And it's supposed to be there as well.
Correct. Again, it's in the office zone only.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Question, under places of worship, have to have a conditional use permit in commercial and highway commercial. I think currently they're permitted in the existing code. Is there a reason why we want to make them conditional at this point?
For the RLUIPA purposes, the RLUIPA basically requires all places of worship to be treated equally. So one way to ensure that is to have the same standard across all zones.
Okay.
So that's why we changed it.
That makes sense.
Okay, you're starting into the next handful, right?
What?
What? Could you, I'm going to skip that one.
Thank you.
On the, in section 1824, a lot of the same development standards are those which were recommended to be changed. That would have been section 1824. No, it is 1824. Same as, it'd be the same as 1816. Did we review section 1816 with regards to development standards?
1816 is where, after the last meeting in April, we were having the discussion about taking out all of the standards for the common open space for multifamily.
Okay, then I would ask that the same ones be considered under 1824.
And we actually already did that.
You did do that, okay.
That's why we're, the footnote that goes with the substance use disorder treatment facility, why are we being so restrictive on where a treatment facility could be located? I mean, 500 feet of any place of worship? Not near any public parks, anywhere where there were minors in attendance?
Check and see if that's.
I bet that's not our law. I bet
Seems
that's pretty criminal. I mean, in a time when we should be encouraging treatment, and I think that's it's very restrictive about where you could ever put it.
These are actually current standards that we have in place. We just moved this over. The only thing we did was we changed the name to update that. We had formerly called them drug treatment clinics, but they had all of the same standards as we have proposed.
Well, they're all, I mean, it has a conditional use permit across the board. Seems like, I mean, because sometimes places of worship want to run treatment, I mean, there are some communities where it is places of worship that open up treatment facilities. It just seems very restrictive. Particularly because it has a conditional use permit, so it's not like it wouldn't be looked at anyway and where it was located.
And this is really kind of more or less of a question, one of the last ones. It's under 1852.2 or -2, dealing with landscape standards. And I don't know whether will we be looking at additional landscape standards given the current drought conditions and the state imposed requirements?
What I'm proposing to do, and it's actually in the very first paragraph purpose, is add, after the list of why we're doing this, add to that list and ensure compliance with all state mandated water conservation regulations. So that would basically give the developer the knowledge that they have to comply with everything, but if the state does change the regulations, we don't have to go back and change the code. At this point, it would cover all state regulations being enforced. So I would recommend adding that language.
Okay. But you have specific, there's a specific requirement in here. It says no more than 50% of the front and side street yards shall be paved with hardscape material. I mean,
and we did discuss this a little bit. The reason behind that is to make sure that somebody doesn't pave over their entire front or side yard.
Right.
But what we did, and we ratcheted down per council member Hewer's request back in April, was that of the remaining 50%, 25% of that to be, or 50% of that, so basically 25% of the overall area needs to be either landscaped with live plants or artificial turf. We added that artificial turf. And then the remaining 25% of the site could be mulch, gravel, whatnot. So we really are only requiring 25% of the front yard to be landscaped at this point. Keep that in mind, but we just want to make sure that, again, we're paving over everything. The reason for that requirement.
All set?
That's all I got.
You're the man. All right. Do I
Johnny, you mentioned something to me this morning about the stucco.
Yes, I'm sorry. One other minor change, and this came up, thanks, Jason, from a couple of the letters that we received. In the downtown standards currently, in the guidelines, I should say, stucco is considered a building material that's not recommended for use. And now, when we took those standards and made them, or guidelines and made them standards, it became prohibited use for exterior material. So my suggestion is simply to take stucco off that list, and we'll review it on a case-by-case basis, basically. But we'll take it off the list of prohibited materials in the downtown area, if that's okay with you.
Council? Do we need a motion to that effect?
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
Move that we delete, is that what we're doing? Stucco?
From the list of prohibited downtown building materials.
That is my motion.
Okay. Motion by Vice Mayor Payne. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Powers. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer? Aye. Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye. 5-0 unanimous. Okay. Do I have to go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to clarify, so on substance use disorder treatment, are we going to leave it the way it is, or is there going to be a
The
motion?
reason it really bothers me is that I don't know why substance abuse is being singled out different than any other medical treatment. We're allowing medical clinics one set of rules, but we're taking this medical treatment, and it is a medical treatment, and we're making it a subgroup all by itself and saying that we put all these special restrictions on this, but we don't have those same restrictions on other medical treatment. And it is all medical treatment.
What were the specific, or what were the differences?
Well,
It could be within
it
500 feet.
has all of these areas that it's not permitted, anywhere near a church, anywhere near a park, anywhere near a, but we don't have those same restrictions on other medical treatment facilities.
Do you know what section that was?
It is on page 18.20-8. It's footnote number 10 in chapter 18.20. And again, the requirements that would have to meet are 1,000-foot distance from any daycare center, library, public park, or public school. 500-foot distance from any place of worship. 500-foot distance from any residential zone or other drug treatment clinic. And so basically those are the requirements that we currently have in place and we're proposing to have in place. But as Councilmember Hewer pointed out, we require conditional use permit for these uses.
And I think a conditional use permit's fine, it's just all these restrictions are added that we don't have on medical services, and it is a medical service. I would make a motion to delete it.
I kind of understand why it has to be a conditional use, because, then if anybody could go and have the treatment center anywhere.
No, I understand the conditional use, but it's all the footnotes that are on number 10.
It's these footnotes
It's
here.
the footnotes that I have an issue with. I think the conditional use permit is fine. I think it should have conditional use permit, but it's all of these conditions that we've written that it would not, would be required.
It would appear to be that you could delete these specific requirements and still make it a conditional use permit. And I don't know, Steve, you tell me if I'm wrong, but if there was a concern, couldn't the commission make findings of a public safety nature if there were some legitimate reason for denial?
So if you eliminated the requirements and it was just subject to a conditional use permit, if the planning commission felt that being within 1,000 feet of, for example, a daycare center presented a health, safety, welfare concern, they could then deny the conditional use permit. By leaving footnote 10 in the code, what would happen from a practical sense is that if an application came in that was within these limitations, we would say it's not permitted, you cannot proceed with your conditional use permit application. By removing them, then you leave it to the discretion of the Planning Commission if they want to allow it within these parameters.
What's the right distance? I need to look at it. I think by removing it, in talking with...
I think we need to look at it a case-by-case basis.
Exactly. I agree, because, you know, these are very set standards, and there would be no flexibility where you could use something similar to this as a basis in determining whether to approve or not approve the use permit. So I think that you, without simply, you know, saying absolutely no, by removing these, it still gives the ability for the city to review and use these as a guide as to whether to approve or not.
I would repeat my motion that we delete the footnote 10 for...
I would second that motion.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hewer and a second by Councilmember Campion. Can you call for the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
And it does require a use permit, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay.
Aye. I was waiting for you to finish. Unanimous 5-0.
Okay.
Okay, if we have nothing else, I had a quick question. We never did close the original public hearing. Do we need to reopen this?
Mr. Mayor, I would just reopen it and
Okay.
see if there's any other comments.
With that in mind, I now open the public hearing on the Development Code Update and zoning map. Do I have any public comment? Seeing none, I close the public meeting. Do I have a motion to accept items, was it 2 through 3? Can we do it? Can we just have a motion for items 2 through 3 and leave it at that? Or do we need two separate motions?
I'd recommend that you take a separate motion, the first one on the introduction of the ordinance, and then a separate motion on the adoption of the resolution.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to introduce an ordinance adopting the Galt Development Code.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hewer. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Councilmember Powers. Please call for the vote.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, before you call the vote, if I could just clarify. So this motion to introduce the ordinance includes the proposed changes that Mr. Stewart reviewed earlier this evening on the slides. It also includes the change relating to the restaurant fast food, the deletion of the language.
All amendments made by council, yes.
Right, and the sidewalk cafe, elimination of the alcohol beverages, and the substance abuse footnote 10. So those were the only three.
And also the downtown stuff.
Downtown.
Oh, and the stucco. So there was 4 additional changes in addition to what was on the,
Wasn't there another one
Aye.
too? Wasn't there the addition of the language on the landscape water conservation issue, putting something in the purpose section of the?
Yeah.
That's correct, and that's actually, I've already called that.
That's already been there. Is that acceptable?
So moved.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the items as amended and voted on by council. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Okay. Unanimous, 5-0. Do I have a motion on number 3, which is adopt a resolution repealing the Galt Landscape Manual and adopting the Galt Landscape Design Guidelines and approving the negative declaration prepared for the project?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilmember Powers. Do I have a second by Councilmember Hewer? Call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
I'll abstain on that.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye, we have 4 ayes, 1 abstention on Councilmember Campion. Moving on. You're free. Moving on to the next item, the 2015 Traffic Capital Improvement Program fee update. Mr. Winkler.
Good evening. We We're supposed to have a brief PowerPoint, I don't know if we coordinated that. The clerk's office is not on the laptop here. You have a handout. While I try to get it off of the C drive, Gwen runs to proceed Deputy Director Gwen Owens will make a brief presentation on the side.
Okay, so by the time Steve finds the presentation, I will be done. So I'm here to talk about the 2015 Traffic Capital Improvement Program. Basically, it was last updated in 2009. We're required to update it approximately every 5 years. So we began in 2014 updating it. So there are traffic speed modifications. Basically, the traffic speed modifications came from the previous traffic capital improvement program used to build out for land use of the city of Galt. We are currently using a 10-year land use horizon because of the fact that when the speed program was updated in 2009, the projections of where we were going to be today was much more aggressive than where we actually are. So basically that resulted in build-out had approximately 8,800 dwelling units. The 20-year horizon has about 3,600 dwelling units. So that's a reduction of 5,200 dwelling units. Additionally, for non-residential uses, the build-out had approximately 12.7 million square feet of non-residential, whereas the 20-year land horizon only had 1.4 million square feet of non-residential. So that was a reduction of $11.3 million of non-residential. So with the reduced land use, basically what happens is that you have a reduced requirement for what your transportation improvements are. So the previous capital improvement program had approximately $215 million of improvement funded. With the reduced land use, the amount of improvements that were required were only $52.6 million, and that's a reduction of approximately $162.4 million of improvement. So based upon that, we had less land use, we had less transportation improvement. Additionally, when we went and looked through updating the fees, we used the revised trip rates that are based upon Institute of Transportation Engineers revised published trip rates. We also reviewed what the pass-by rates were for each of the land use categories, and we also looked at the trip length. So overall, because actually I think this is in the second slide, or third slide on your, what you actually have in front of you. You'll see that overall, that the result was that retail for the area outside of the Northeast area has a reduction of approximately 25%. And then the other single-family, multifamily, office, and industrial stay approximately what they currently are. There's slight reductions in single-family and multifamily and slight increases in office and industrial. So I'll just continue. Similarly, in the Northeast area, the reduction for retail was a little bit more than 25%, and then single-family and multifamily were reduced slightly, and office and industrial were increased. Now, the reason why there's a difference between within the Northeast area versus outside of the Northeast area is the Northeast area had two community facility districts that included transportation improvements. These improvements were bonded for, and currently the residents are paying, a fee yearly for that. And such, their traffic impact fees when somebody comes in to do a development is basically less because there's a credit for that. With that, that concludes my presentation. So if you have any questions.
Any questions by council?
No.
By the way, your presentation is here. We just can't figure out how we got it on those screens.
I did have a question on the preliminary opinion of cost sheets. I'm looking at these, and these show are the fees constructing full road sections?
Basically, similarly, they're not doing frontage improvements. So if I have, so there are no two-lane roads in there. If I come in, like for example, Eastview's coming in, they will be constructing Walnut, which is a two-lane road. They're responsible for all of Walnut. For the frontage, they are also responsible for that frontage also. Now,
On Marengo or on Walnut?
on the, wherever their frontage is, they're responsible for.
Okay.
So, it doesn't necessarily construct full roads. It constructs, if you have a 4 or 6 lane, your center lanes and your center turn lanes, medians, etc. If you have an expanded intersection, it constructs those.
So the outer lanes and sidewalks
Curb, gutter, sidewalk lanes.
are the responsibility of the joining property owner.
Correct.
The interior then is the responsibility of the fee-driven
Correct.
component.
And there's also an assumption of that we would actually get some outside funding for improvements like the Walnut Interchange, similarly like Central Gulf Interchange that we've received federal funding for. And there is some assumption, and some assumptions for Measure A in there too, I believe.
Are there a lot of new projects, or are these the same projects?
Basically what it was is that the previous TCIP had a list that was like this long.
Right.
This is a subset of that list. So there's no new projects. It's just because the land use, our 20-year horizon is less than the build-out of Galt, we didn't need as many transportation improvements.
And I guess I'm having a hard time looking at the difference in the total cost going from over 200 million to down to 52 million. You know, that's a 75% reduction. You would think your fees would come down. Why are the fees still relatively the same, with the exception of the retail? So how do you explain that?
Okay, so first of all, you have your reduced land use that results in reduced transportation and costs. Then,
I guess and my question was, is there a different horizon for build-out as well? Or is this still a 20-year plan?
Everything's a 20-year plan.
Okay.
So land use and transportation improvements are a 20-year plan.
Okay.
Now, what we actually did is we looked at, we used revised trip rates based upon ITE, which they publish every so many years. We also looked at what the pass-by rate was and also the trip length to be more in line with the region of what they use. And so that's why you had your residential and then your office and industrial staying approximately the same, and we were able to make the reductions for retail.
Retail.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions?
That's all I have.
Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing to receive comments. Seeing no public comments, I will close public hearing. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution to approve a revision to the citywide traffic impact fees?
So moved.
Okay. Motion by Vice Mayor Payne. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Powers. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Unanimous vote. Thank you, Glenn. Moving on to the recommended 2014-2019 capital improvement program budget adjustment. Mr. Behrman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This is a follow-up item to the budget workshop we had last week, May 26th. This is a public hearing, and staff's recommendation is that the council conduct a public hearing and adopt the resolution amending the 5-year CIP. I'm not going to go through the projects. We did that last week. The changes recommended by staff and the council at the workshop have been incorporated into what's presented in front of you this evening. The Planning Commission did see this on May 14th and approved, or at least approved a resolution finding that the CIP projects were in conformance with the city's adopted general plan. That is the extent of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions about any of the CIP projects that you might have. Otherwise, I'd suggest that the council open the public hearing and adopt the resolution.
Council, any questions?
No.
Then we will open the public hearing on this item. Seeing no public comment, hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion to adopt, excuse me, do I have a motion to adopt a resolution amending the 5-year capital improvement program?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Powers. Do I have a second?
Second.
second by Councilmember Hewer. Okay, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Passes unanimously, 5-0. Going to regular calendar. City Council's office. We'll start with moving $1,400 to in the council travel line item to be used as discretionary funds towards the Galt Community Garden. Vice Mayor Payne.
Well, I would just like to use that money for the community garden. We've had quite a few donations, but the lot is quite large, and we have lots of plans in the future for programs and things there. So I would like to move my money to the community garden.
Okay, and $1,400 doesn't appear to be a big sum of money. But one, it's not Ms. Payne's money, it's the taxpayers' money. And travel is allocated for travel. If it's not used for travel, it should roll over to the following year and go back into the general fund. I don't think it should be moved to discretionary funds. We already have a discretionary fund in which council members can make that choice. This is not that money. This is done for council. This is money that's allocated for council training, travel for expenses, and it's not discretionary money. It should go back into the general fund. I don't agree that we take money that's allocated for one thing in a budget, this budget is for, and move it into something else.
I understand where you're coming from. It's just something that we've been doing in the past, and if we are going to continue, that's what I'd like to do.
Well, if it was done in the past, doesn't mean that we need to continue to do.
That's right, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't.
Okay.
Do you have a motion to that effect?
Can I just say something too? And not to single anyone out, but I was asking Donna, who else had money, and we all have money, and that's a big chunk of money that comes out, and some have been doing it in the past, but others haven't. So I'm inclined to agree with Councilmember Hewer that it's allocated for one thing and it should stay where it's allocated.
I didn't even realize we had a travel fund.
It's like going to the conferences and things. And as I said before, it's something that we have done in the past. I don't plan to use it for traveling. It's money that's been budgeted, but if the council wishes to change their policy, then that's going to be up to the consensus of the calendar, of the council, excuse me.
This isn't actually a council policy, correct?
There's a certain amount of money that's put in travel for the council for conferences, and then there's an allocation. I can't remember what, it's $1,500 per council member, and how much? $2,000 per council member, and the mayor gets the same amount. And in the past, the council has approved, reallocated. If a council member hasn't used their entire $2,000, there have been council approvals in the past where a portion of that money has been used for another project. It does require council approval, and so that's why I believe Vice Mayor Payne is bringing it forward to the council this evening. Council has complete discretion. Council can approve it or deny it at the council's discretion.
I make a motion to deny.
Well, okay, we have a motion on the floor with no second. We have a motion to deny. Do I have a second on the first motion? I will second the first motion. Do I have a motion on the second one?
What are you doing?
Her motion was to do it. Nobody, and no one gave a second on it because she was immediately interrupted on it as far as the process. So we need to finish that motion first, then accept Councilmember Hewer's motion as well.
So which motion are we voting on currently?
The way it works is you take the last motion made and vote on first.
Who made a second motion?
Councilmember Hewer.
Which was to deny.
Deny.
Okay. Okay. I would second that motion.
Okay. With that said, we'll start with the motion to deny. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne?
No.
Councilmember Hewer?
Yes.
Councilmember Campion?
Yes.
Councilmember Powers?
Yes.
Mayor Cruz?
No. Okay, the motion does carry 3-0, or 3-2. Moving on to discretionary funds. Councilmember Payne.
Would you read the item?
Approve the allocation of $1,000 to Vice Mayor Payne's discretionary funds in fiscal year 2015 budget to go towards the Galt Community Garden and playground improvement at Harvey Park. If necessary, authorize the city clerk to carry forward the dollar amount of her discretionary to fiscal year 2016.
I think the council understands the project, and I don't think I need to go into any further discussion.
Motion
So-
to approve.
Second?
I have a motion by Councilmember Campion, second by Councilmember Hewer. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Next one is discretionary funds for Councilmember Campion. Councilmember Campion?
Yeah, I'd like to carry $400 over for the Harvest Carnival Community Outreach for 2015 and approve discretionary funds in the amount of $600 for the McFarland Living Ranch History Restroom Project.
I thought we had already done the $600 for the restroom. What was that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I think
You did it previously.
that was last year.
Okay.
Yes.
My ear. Okay, do I have a motion to that effect?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Powers, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hewer. Please call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Okay, discretionary funds. Councilmember Powers, you're up.
I have to say it's pretty busy. We've all kept our money till this part of the end of the year. I would like to put $500 to PAL, Police Activities League, and then also $500 to the Galt Police Explorer, Post 273, for, where's it at down here? For the, where is it? Oh, for an Explorer competition that's sponsored by the Stockton Police Youth Activity. So their fees.
Is that your motion?
That's what
Do I have a motion to that effect?
I move.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Powers, second by Councilmember Campion. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. All right. And last one, discretionary funds for crews. As all of you know, I've got a project that I started way back in 2010 for the military banners for our young men and women overseas. And I just need the approval of council to carry the remaining funds over to the next fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hewer, second by Councilmember Powers. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Carries 5-0. All right, City Manager's Office. Recommended 2014, 2015, and 2015, 2016 budget adjustments. Mr. Behrman.
Again, this item, again, is a continuation of the May 26th budget workshop where we went through the details of the proposed budget. Again, this is a revision of the two-year budget that was adopted by the council last year. A number of different proposals and recommendations from staff. There were a number of changes recommended by staff and also recommended by the council at the workshop. Those recommendations have been incorporated into the budget that you have in front of you tonight. There was one other correction in Schedule 6.
In Schedule 6, which is the position allocations, I believe our finance director has passed those out for the city council, and that was just a, Inez, you want to?
The building permit specialist, there are two approved positions. One of them is funded, one is not funded, but the prior amount showed the asterisk as if both positions were unfunded, so we wanted to go ahead and clarify that. And this is consistent with what council approved in the original budget process. There was a typographical error during the midterm. We wanted to present it since this is the official personnel document for the city of Galt.
Thank you, Ms. Carrier. The only other thing that I would highlight for the city council that was not presented at the workshop, and it's not being recommended for you this evening, but it's really just a heads-up item that will have an impact on our budget next year. I received a letter from the county last week after the workshop regarding animal control. This is an issue that we've been talking about for the last year or so, and the costs are expected to increase significantly. Again, next year we have about $60,000 budgeted in next year's budget, and the latest number they gave us was about $185,000 for next year. So that's and just as recently as February, the number that they had provided to us was much less significant. So we're going to be meeting with the county over the next several weeks and trying to reduce those costs. I can't tell you exactly what the final number is going to be, but it's just a heads up that there is going to be cost increases associated with animal control next year and likely into the future. We've been paying a very low amount for a number of years, and so that's something that we need to budget for and plan accordingly. And again, we'll do what we can to keep those costs to a minimal, but there will be an increase, and that will be coming to the council as soon as we're able to come to an agreement with the county for a recommendation. So you'll be looking for that over the next couple meetings.
Okay.
Other than that, there aren't really any other surprises from what we present to the council at the May 26th budget workshop. So I would recommend that the council adopt the resolution amending the 2014-15 and 15-16 budget.
Any questions from council? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Payne. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Hewer. Please call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Carries unanimously. Police Department, Measure R, position staffing changes. Chief Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Lieutenant Brian Kalinowski will make the presentation.
Evening, Mayor, members of the council. Here tonight on a Measure R expenditure change that we're requesting to occur for next fiscal year. Currently, the records unit has 1.5 employees, plus a supervisor that covers both records and dispatch. As a result of the police department actually finally being staffed for a significant amount of time with all our sworn staff, it's impacted the workflow and workload of the staff assigned to the records unit. And looking in challenging economic times and a way to fund an upgraded position to have 2 full-time people to provide some flexibility in the records unit, the management of the police department is requesting the City Council modify or amend the Measure R expenditure plan to fully fund the records, secondary records position, and take one of the vacant Measure R dispatcher/CSO position from a full-time to a part-time position. It is our expectation that the first monies that we receive, which is about $40,000, we would be coming back for an amendment on that new ongoing revenue to make that dispatcher position full-time. Based on our hiring schedule and the 3 vacancies we have, 1 in general fund and 2 in Measure R for dispatch, we are comfortable with the fact that this 3rd position, based on a training and hiring schedule, will not be filled for some time in order to achieve both an operational issue and address the request of staff. We're asking City Council to approve this change. It should be noted that the department met with not only the supervisor of the unit, who we've had ongoing conversations with, and the employees themselves, but the GPDCA, which is the Galt Police Department Civilians Association president, and they concur with our request and the understanding about the funding in the future. We took this item to Measure R subcommittee. The mayor and one council member Powers had the pleasure to sit through as part of that meeting. There's a little misunderstanding with the newest members about their role. They had some personal views about how we should be appropriating money. But we are going to fix that problem by having a training session and before our next regular Measure R meeting, so there's some consistency in the transfer of those people assigned to that committee, and I think we will solve that problem. Having said that, this is before you for your decision tonight.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Questions from council?
The discussion you had with the other members of the committee, did you feel like it was a misunderstanding, or?
Well, there are 2 members of the committee that are here tonight. I think those tenured members understand the role of the Measure R committee. I believe the newest members believe that the allocations or recommendation of allocation should come from them to the city council, and that the city council should confirm their direction when in light it's a recommendation.
Right.
Or their responsibility is to confirm that we're using the monies under the ordinance properly, and that we're to account for those monies and provide a quarterly update, and that's where it ends. And so, I think there's some personal feelings, but that's not the committee's recommendation.
Okay. But it's cleared up. I mean, according to the
I think with
way
the
the
spring-
initiative was written and everything,
Right.
that they are advisory.
Yes. And we may look at some,
Or
how we
review.
approach that. I think we've been ultra liberal in our approach to be transparent, because they are ambassadors to the community and can speak on behalf of Measure R based on the information we provide them. So even though there isn't a requirement to advise them of every little thing that we're doing, we have gone for every change that we've had, just so there is that communication and that transparency, so they are advised.
So they're actually reviewing what we do to see that we are complying.
Right. Which is not required by the ordinance, but what we've done in practice, at the
Okay.
direction of the city manager.
And we should continue to do that, so they understand what they do, but they were, they were comparing apples to oranges, and
Well, if they didn't.
they did, that's what I'm saying.
They're
So the
hurt- they're hurt
training,
for the right place.
so that's why
Mm-hmm.
the training is going to take place.
Their hearts were in the right place, and I
Yeah.
really applaud what they were trying to do, and like we talked about that night, orientation is always needed, and they'll be off and running.
Yeah.
Great.
Sort of like handing a two-year-old the car keys and saying drive. Ain't gonna work unless you give them something to work with.
I have one more question. According to the way,
I still wouldn't give you that.
yeah,
Or a 16-year-old.
For a 16-year-old, that's worse.
in the report you talk about make a current full-time Measure R dispatch / community service officer position part-time.
So we
What does that mean?
So what finance has done is taken the money necessary to upgrade that records position to full-time. The remaining money is $31,000 and some change. With roll-up costs for taxes, it's about $38,000. So that will buy us about 1,200 part-time hours collectively that we can use going forward. And we have some work, as you may know, on an analysis for dispatch and other things. And so we may be coming back for some additional suggestions as we go through the next fiscal year, but we'll wait to see what that reveals.
So this is not taking a full-time person and making them a part-time person. You're adding a part-time person? Is that?
We would be taking the it's the second Measure R position assigned to dispatch. It's the third open position we currently have in dispatch.
Currently vacant.
Currently vacant, has been vacant since we funded that position. And we're taking the monies from that third position, moving it over to records in the same budget division, moving it to records. And so instead of having that full-time 2,000-hour employee, we have about 1,200 plus hours available for us to use in part-time employment. So it gives us some flexibility outside of a traditional full-time staffing hiring position. We have some ideas about how we might be able to achieve that.
Okay.
Makes sense? Does that help you a little bit?
Yeah, thank you.
But, and the last thing I would say, this changes nothing on your 5-year plan that you saw back in February. All we did was footnoted the fact that we're moving those funds from dispatch to records in the same unit to achieve that, but all funding streams and expenditures and encumbrances remain the same.
Very good.
Finance Director, does that comply with our policies?
Well, you need to ask the lawyer that one.
Our process.
Mr. Cortez, did you want to, since you're... Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead, Inez.
Well, I believe this is consistent with the expenditure plan. Again, that's what council actually reviewed. So the bottom line is that we're taking a a part-time police records assistant and creating a full-time position, and then we're creating the vacant dispatcher position that is a full-time position to a part-time position. So that's where finance gets involved in funding full-time, part-time, and so forth. But that is that they're consistent with, I believe, the expenditure plan with Measure R.
Okay, thank you.
And we also have a public speaker sheet, Mr. Cortez.
Just as a point of clarification, it's not consistent with the plan. What's before you is a change in the expenditure plan, which the council has the discretion to do.
Okay. Moving on. Mr. Cortez, you have a public speaker sheet. Would you like to come up?
Good evening, Mayor Cruz, council members, and staff. My name is Ralph Cortez, health assistant, and also on the Measure R committee that happened to be present at that meeting as well. All members of our committee were present, except for one member who was fashionably late. But overall, the way the lieutenant presented himself was exact, and we had Councilmember Powers and Mayor Cruz as well, which was very helpful. I just wanted to say that I felt that, yeah, there was a little bit of misunderstanding throughout that meeting, but I certainly want to applaud the lieutenant's response, his calm, cool demeanor, and the resolution that we actually came up with, which was suggested by our chair, Tony Lara. So I'm very comfortable. I have spent some time reviewing the ordinance as well. Feel that being a representative of that committee should be well-rounded with knowledge on that. So the suggestion to have a workshop to help some of the newer members get a better understanding and as well maybe review some of the points of the ordinance overall will certainly help. I think it's going to allow future committee members to what am I trying to say? The transition from one to a new, helping with that. So I just want to say that the lieutenant did a remarkable job with the presentation that he had and the explanations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Any further questions from council? Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution amending Measure R expenditure plan?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Campion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Councilmember Hewer. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Unanimous. Next item, number 8. City of Galt representative to the Sacramento County Disaster Council. Chief Drummond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The item before you tonight is regarding the Sacramento County Disaster Council. Our recommendation is that you appoint a representative from the City Council to the County Disaster Council. We received communication from the County Office of Emergency Services requesting that a representative be appointed from among your members. This is kind of a resurrection, reinstatement of the council. It hasn't functioned in many years, but the County Office of Emergency Services is wanting to do that. The Disaster Council, there's one mandated under state law in the Emergency Services Act, and so every council is to have, every county is to have a disaster council. And it consists of the city manager and a member of the council from each of the cities, and then the county executive officer and one of the county board supervisors. So that's the group. Of course, the purpose of the council is oversight. They encourage this coordinated emergency planning among the jurisdictions. As you know, when something happens of the nature of a disaster, it doesn't just affect one entity, but it's on a regional basis. And so this group meets, oversees the planning of that. And so they're thinking they're probably going to meet, at least check in and see if they need a meeting on a quarterly basis, but they may not actually meet that often. They'll meet no less than annually, once a year for that. What happens is there is a group that meets, a group under that disaster council, and that would be your emergency coordinators group. And so that is, you know, an employee from each of the districts. For City of Galt, it's Sergeant Craig Walton, for instance, and he goes to those meetings. So that's where the actual work of disaster planning and coordination goes on, but the disaster council will oversee that and review that and make sure things are in order. So again, our recommendation is that the council appoint a representative to that, and I'm available for any questions.
Do you have anyone who'd like to step up on that one, or any motions?
I would.
Nominate.
I would.
Okay.
Okay, yay.
Do we need to?
Okay,
Motion. I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Campion, and a second
Second.
by Councilmember Powers. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Congratulations. Okay, moving on to Public Works. Award of purchase agreement for play equipment for the Harvey Park renovation. Mr. Winkler. Hey, it works.
Technology is a one thing when it works. Mr. Mayor, council members, tonight we're recommending that you authorize the procurement of goods in the amount of $47,555.45 for Harvey Park play equipment. And we're recommending an award to Playworld NSP3, and we're also recommending a contingency amount of $2,400, which are all within the existing CIP budget. Mr. Phil Forrest is going to give a very brief presentation on sort of what we're recommending specifically as an option for you.
Just to give you a little history, in 2014, the city was notified that they were a recipient of a housing-related park grant, which wound up being $184,000 and $400. In July of 2014, staff took a number of play equipment proposals to the Parks and Rec Commission. They did not have a quorum, but they took, the members that were present took a look at the various options, and they kind of had a recommended option, which then in August of 2014, staff came to the City Council with a priority project list, and the budget item for play equipment was the budget item of that recommended option from the Parks and Rec Commission. Of the 21 items that were presented to council in August of 2014, 14 items were selected, and this is one of them. A request for proposal was sent out to 3 different playground vendors, Playworld, Miracle Play, and Game Time. The RFP was fairly unique in that, as opposed to specifying a particular model and give us a price, we said, here's the budget, and essentially you have free reign to submit proposals that meet that budget item. And in mid-May, we received a total of 7 proposals from the 3 vendors. In an effort to save time, city staff, which included the Director of Parks and Recreation, met and did a blind review of the 7 proposals. And when I say blind, in that all logos and references to the vendors as well as costs were removed from the drawings and the renderings, and so the 7 options were evaluated on the look and the feel and the meeting of the theme that was identified by the Parks and Rec Commission. Steve, could I, next slide.
Good for you. Is it turned on? Oh.
There we go. Just some general info, Harvey Park, Little Red Circles, approximate location, as well as this is a aerial of where the play equipment will be sited. And then city staff selection was this option 1 of Playworld, and it was that was the recommended option. The price also includes a perimeter border and then a ADA accessible ramp and fill material, which is referred to as engineered wood, which is also ADA accessible. And with that, if the council approves the recommendation for tonight, the delivery of the play equipment at the worst case would be very early August, which gives us about a month to install it with a volunteer labor force that the director has already pretty much lined up. You do have some alternatives. You can reject the recommended option. You can review of the other 6 options, or you can recommend that we go back to the Parks and Rec Commission and have them select of the various 7 options, but in the interest of meeting the desired time frame for having the installation occur in time for the planned event, we recommend moving forward with the option before you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Forrest. Questions from council?
I don't have a question, but I like the way that they took the environment, the trees and everything, and tried to follow through with that in the design of the equipment. And I think it'll be nice to have some place for younger children to play while, for example, the ball games are going on. But the other part is it'll make a better use of that area where families can come.
What area is this?
It's under the oak, kind of under the oak trees. Is that correct?
It's in
Southeast corner.
It's in the upper northwest quadrant, kind of.
Northwest? Well, northwest would be like at Second and C?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the intersection of Second and C right there where the pointer is. And so right at the corner is a grouping of various mature oak trees. And so the idea is to place it somewhat in proximity to the oak trees so that they can provide some shade.
Well, I think it's great too, but I do have some concerns because it's so far away from where parents are going to be watching the game, and this is for little kids, and it's just kind of far away from where the parents will be watching the game, so that means parents will have to come and watch the little kids.
I was concerned that
It's right by the
seating
corner.
around it. There's
I
no
think it's right.
Seating?
It's in the foul ball territory too. Just kidding.
I don't know, I like that it has the trees and all around it. I just think it should be a little closer, not right on the corner.
Or provide something out there for parents to say.
There's no seating.
Some seating. Yeah.
Well, we are on a budget with that. We have limited funds, but the other thing, yes, it would be nice.
Is there no place closer to this grandstand?
It's my understanding that the team wanted to have a certain area to reserve for them to warm up.
Not only that, but to the south of this area is a volleyball court, and that is actually one of the items that is indicated to be improved. And then south of there is a cluster of picnic tables. So that's kind of where it wound up.
And for me, the primary cause or desire for this was to make better use of Harvey Park. As it is now, unless there are ball games going on, it sits there and it accumulates some kind of, sometimes undesirable people, and it's been an area that has been notorious for gang confrontation. So my thinking is that if we make it more desirable for families to come and bring their children as well as the ball games, because if there's no ball games going on, it's pretty much vacant. So I'm hoping that we can make it a more active place so that we'll have less crime, and we can, the neighborhood, I think, needs a family park, someplace to go to.
Well, I think that's what we all agreed on when we said the money should go to Harvey Park. But I really don't like the location, but that's just me. I think it's too far away from.
Does this include what these structures are? I don't get what these structures are that are next to the play equipment. There's, I don't know, pile of rocks. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah.
What are those?
Are they climbing?
Climbing
So
structure.
they're like climbing structures?
Yeah.
You're referring to these
Yeah.
structures?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
They are kind of
climbing rocks
confusing.
kind of thing.
I just didn't know what they were. So that is included in the
Correct,
equipment.
correct.
My concern about this, the choice of this one isn't necessarily that any of it's better or worse than any of the others, but it seems, it says 55 days. The other, we're trying to get this done in a fairly rapid. The other ones are saying delivery in 30 days. Is there a reason why this design or Play World is almost twice as long as some of the other proposals?
The Play World manufacturing site is in Pennsylvania. I don't know where the other vendors are manufactured.
I don't.
As indicated, that is by far, if you will, the worst case scenario of, weather and shipping and whatnot. Certainly, they're very much aware of the, desire to deliver, and it still met the time frames we thought of, being delivered and having enough time to be installed prior to the August 29th event.
Anything else, Russell? No, I like the one you picked the best, personally.
I'm just concerned about the 55 days as compared to others being 30 days.
Was the Recreation Commission consulted on the location for the improvements? Or do we know?
I believe they were.
Okay.
And out of that is where the for lack of a better term, the theme of forest, woodland, kind of.
One of the things we.
But they liked where it was put, they liked the location, they liked that it was on the corner there.
Given all things being equal, like I said, then that, other parts of the park are earmarked for other things, either current existing uses or renovation on the project priority list.
So how close is the volleyball court to this? Is it right next to it or is it up?
It's not right next to it, no. It's probably about 50 feet, 100 feet to it.
So there'll be a volleyball thingy in between
The two poles are already existing for the volleyball court. The renovation is to go from a grass to a sand court.
One of the things we could do on the location, the predominant user of the park right now is Galt Youth Baseball. I think that's a lot of the concerns, and so we can make sure that we consult with Galt Youth Baseball before we pick the final
I think
location.
it's kind of far away for little kids to be from watching the game. That's just me.
I know I sat in a meeting with Armando and some of the representatives from the ball club, whatever they're called, and their input was taken into consideration. For example, they wanted to reserve some space for the players to warm up before the game, so this kind of seemed to allow that to happen as well.
Galt Youth Baseball is definitely aware of the location of this. In fact, as part of the fencing project that the city had done, I even proposed a higher fence along that side, and Galt Youth Baseball didn't like that idea.
Was it just the coaches that you were talking to with the Galt Youth Baseball? Just asking, because,
Jason, I believe, is his name,
oh, just one person?
By the board.
by the board, the representative of the board.
The other thing is, haven't they volunteered to build the equipment?
They volunteered to provide other items, particularly they're going to repaint the scoreboard.
No, I thought they were going to actually,
Armando has talked to them about volunteering to help assemble it.
But the name he mentioned to me was not Galt Youth Baseball. I want to say Kiwanis, but don't quote me on that.
I think we're kind of getting a little off here.
yeah.
Well, anyway, I like the choice, but I just think at some point down the road as a wish list or something, if we really want this to be used by families, there needs to be some sort of seating around it. I think it's too bad that there's no seating in the design or anything. I just know when you take your kids to play on the play equipment, parents sit. They don't stand and watch them. So what they're going to end up doing is being far away at those benches or somewhere else, and no one will be supervising what's happening here in that area. So, or it won't be utilized because there's nowhere to sit. So, yeah, I mean, I know it's not part of the budget now, but down the road, I really think it needs to be looked at.
And on top of that, you mentioned it earlier, and I really agree with it. The location, all it takes is one foul ball and maybe a 3 or 4 year old, and you've got a serious issue.
He was joking.
I wasn't. It is an issue.
Exactly where the fence line is. That is pretty good foul ball territory. It really is.
Is there, and again, it goes into the line of the budget anywhere, somewhere down the line where we can maybe incorporate a fence or something to prevent one of the kids from getting hit by a foul ball.
I would suggest that anywhere in that park is foul ball.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Anywhere in that park.
But you're basically putting a target out there now.
Well,
Remember, this isn't just.
anywhere in the park is foul ball.
I know.
Pop up can hit you in the head just like a line drive and do just as much damage. So if that's the concern, then I would recommend we nix the project. It's not in direct drive line. We did recommend a higher fence.
I disagree with that. Steve, I mean, you know, I take that as almost a flippant comment.
It was not intended to be.
Well,
What I'm
there
saying
are a
is,
number of places that would be safe from foul balls underneath the tree canopy, back by the tables. So, I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, it's maybe, you know, my point is, I think we should move on, approve this thing, and send it back to the commission or staff and come up with some alternatives for sites. I mean, I think there's enough concern that's been said here tonight about that particular location that maybe staff ought to look at it. That's all.
we'd be happy to. I'm not suggesting we wouldn't be willing to do that. I'm just suggesting, I think anytime you have a ballpark next to playground equipment, you've got that exposure.
Well, my concern wasn't the foul ball, so my concern is far away from the kids, so I would like to see a couple of alternatives. We could still order the equipment and get the show on the road. Let's just,
All right then, do I have a motion to adopt resolution?
Approval. Motions 1 and 2.
Okay,
second.
I have a motion by Councilmember
Are we
Campion.
going to say with bringing back alternatives to where it could be?
Would you like to include that in your motion?
Yes, please. Yes,
What was it?
to bring back alternatives to where
Sure.
else it could be.
Sure.
So amended to bring back alternatives, correct?
Correct.
All right, is that acceptable to you? Barbara?
No.
Okay.
We'll call
I
for the
mean,
vote.
if you're taking a vote, my vote is no.
No, I'm just looking for the second.
Oh. No, she's,
Okay.
we both seconded it, but give it to her.
Okay, so the second will go to Councilmember Hewer with the amendment. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne,
No.
Councilmember Hewer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Powers,
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye.
Make it delayed, Barbara.
4-1.
Yeah, won't delay.
Make a final comment. I think the bench suggestion is a good one, and if to the extent that we have cost savings or we don't utilize the contingency that we have in there, we could look at putting some benches on the outside of that.
Or, you know, the community is really good at building things and coming in. For example, the beautification committee has already built a bench. So I don't see that as a problem.
Okay.
And just if we could clarify so we get it right for you, did you want us to take it back to Parks and Rec Commission for recommendation? Or bring options directly back to the council?
Yeah. Yeah, back down.
Okay.
If we want it there by the time for the heritage, right?
And it will be.
Be nice.
It will.
Otherwise, we're going to have a big celebration that's nothing to celebrate.
Okay, comments by staff? Sam?
I'd like to just comment on recognizing that budget is a citywide effort. I would like to give a shout out to 3 finance staff members for their commitment to excellence and in meeting budget target dates. So Michelle Neely actually is lead on the budget. She's responsible for maintenance primarily and budget presentation. Greg is responsible, Deputy Finance Director, responsible for the CIP process, and Matt Boring took lead on personnel. So huge shout out to their continued efforts on the budget. So thank you very much.
Guys. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Winkler.
Hot off the press, we got the May water conservation numbers, and it's an astonishing 42% reduction from the comparable month in 2013, which is our new comparator, and that's 10% better than the new 32% mandate. That's 1 month only, and it's a good start. Half that month was after we announced stage 3, so we've got some of that, and we also note that it's a little bit probably of can't be expected for the next couple of months, in that we had an abnormal heat wave in 2013 early in May, and that probably drove the comparator numbers up. But for now, we're looking good in the first month of reporting to the state as to the new 32% mandate.
Okay. Nothing? Chief? Mr. Graham? Mr. Rudolph?
What's that?
Anything from council? Mr. Campion?
Nothing.
Councilor Powers?
No.
Councilor Hewer?
Nope.
Vice Chair?
Yes, as a matter of fact. While Monica's here, I want to say how much I enjoyed the City Tots graduation, and that I think it's a great program, and I think your teachers and your department do a great job. I was glad to be there.
All right, I have nothing. This meeting is canceled. I wish. Adjourned.